All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Sorry I'm a little off tonight. I realized that I turned my Wi Fi off on my phone, and so the camera stream wasn't streaming, but we got it and we are set. So glad to have you join the live stream tonight, the Paint Party live stream. This is, can you believe it's episode number 24? Number 24. Hey there, April. So glad to have you. Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. Can't believe we've been doing this more than 20 episodes, but we have fun every weekend, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. I hope that your week went well. We're starting to get some spring weather here in Arkansas, and so I got out on the river this afternoon in my kayak. It was a lot of fun. But by the end of the afternoon, it was actually chilly, so ended right at the right time, in time to zoom home and get set up for the stream. So excited to be with you this evening, and excuse my bed head on the back of my head. Hey there, Lola. Of course, as always, so happy to have you joining me from up north. It's probably a little cooler where you are than it is here, but I hope that you're heading into spring and the snow is quickly melting if it hasn't already. Glad to have you all. All right, let's get jumped in. For those of you who may be new to the live stream or just popping in to see what this is all about, every week I paint a new painting. I have been teaching myself to paint for probably the last 6 or 7 months. Well, now probably 7 or 8 months. But every week I join you on this live stream on Saturday evening, and we paint a new painting. So last week we worked on this painting of this, what I call a curious doe. She looked curious to me. We didn't quite get done, but you could see, those of you who were here last week, I put some additional detail. I lightened the background. I put some additional detail. I added her whiskers, put some additional detail in the eyes, and also in the fur here. I'm not sure if it's quite done. I could probably continue working on this and improve it, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think she's really cute, so that was a lot of fun, and we did that last week. So, Curious Doe. But I wanted to show y'all how that ended up. Oh, Lola, it was 45 and sunny. That's actually really nice when the sun comes out, isn't it? Once it's been cold for months and months. I remember years ago when I lived in Wisconsin, at the end of my first winter, we were coming out of it, and I went to Target, and there was a woman who was walking across the asphalt in the parking lot. Well, it was still kind of little snow on the asphalt, but she just had like a tracksuit on, and I thought, what's that crazy woman without a coat? And then I thought, whoa, the sun's out. It actually is kind of warm. And I looked at my phone, and it was 27 degrees, but it had been under 10 degrees for 2 or 3 weeks. So when it jumped up to 27, almost 30 degrees, it felt warm, especially with the sun. So we take it when we can. All right. Hey there, Amy. I assume Amy and Phil. So glad to have you. Thanks for popping in and saying hello. All right. So today, this evening, y'all, we are going to be doing this fun painting. This is the first time I've done one that's kind of a macro or kind of macro focus painting. It's really close up, obviously, on a bee, on a flower. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. So let's get jumped right in and see how far we can get in the next hour or so. Let me pull y'all closer. I'm going to switch, as I always do, I'll switch my camera angles so I don't make you nauseated. Moving the camera and adjusting it. I'll get this over my shoulder so you can kind of see a little better what we are doing. All right, there we are. We are set to go. So let's jump in And as you can see, several have already commented saying hello. Feel free to jump into the conversation as we go along. I am always really happy to have you all here with me. Makes this process so much more fun than, although I have a blast even when I'm just sitting by myself. They always say, whoever they is, always says, find something you love to do so much that time seems to disappear. And often that is how it feels to me when I get started painting. I can be in here for several hours just kind of plugging along, and it is a lot of fun for me. All right, so let's jump in, and I'm going to start with the bright petals in the background. Just get some base color on there, and then we'll do the flower and see how we get going. So, yeah, we're taking a little, what is this? I think it's just light, yeah, just light violet. So I'm taking a light violet and a little magenta, just a touch of magenta with white. And I think that will be our base color for those petals here. We'll just plug that right in. Give us some color in the background. Cover our canvas a little bit. We'll have to do a couple of layers of this as we usually do. That's why I'm not being very precise. I just want to get it covered because we will, the canvas will soak a lot of this color up, and we'll have to do a second layer. Hey there, Mom and Dad, usually. Glad to have you pop in. Thanks for taking the flowers and chocolates over to Abuela today. I'm sure she enjoyed that, or will enjoy it in the coming days. Good question, Amy. I don't know. I've talked about this a little bit, but what I do, depending, usually on my, if I do a landscape, I'm a little more freehand. But in this case, with animals, my animal paintings, what I've been doing, let me show you kind of the method to the madness. I have the picture, and I usually put it up. You can see here on my screen. I can turn my screen sideways or long ways. So I'll turn it, in this case, long ways, similar to my screen. But what I do is I use this, I think it's called a prospect. It is a tool, I think, that's actually an architectural tool, but it allows me to set a ratio and set dimensions. So, for example, I could measure the size of the bee from head to tail and then create, well, it's a little bit larger over here. And so I can get the same. And then if I want to measure the length of the wing, that way I get the rough idea correct. But this one I did, the bee I put a little effort into just so it would be positioned correctly, but compositional wise. But otherwise, I just kind of placed the flowers so that the petals would be relatively correct. Oh, I hear the sirens going out my window. I live just down the street. I think I've said this before, but I live down the street from a firehouse, and so often the ambulance and fire, when they're called out, will go down my street, and I guess that's one advantage or disadvantage of living downtown. Oops. Hey, Alex. Welcome. Glad to have always my friends on Twitch pop in. Yeah, I have been painting, and I cross stream from YouTube to Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and different places. I've been doing this for the last several months, teaching myself to paint. And so every Saturday, I live stream at 7 p.m. Central. So great to have you. Appreciate you stopping in. We're just laying in this base, as we said, and we're getting it in pretty good. So we will jump, once we kind of get this all set. Like I said, we'll have to do probably a couple of coats. I'm going to go back because the first petals we did are probably drying. Notice how quickly, as these dry, acrylics generally dry darker than you apply them. Notice how the colors here are lighter as they're not dry, but as they dry, they get darker. So I'm going to lighten on my second coat. I'm going to lighten up, add a little more of the magenta, just because I want them to kind of pop there off the canvas. So we'll add a little more magenta and a little more of the white, so it gives us a little more pink and reddish pink tone, as opposed to the coolness of the blue and the violet. And I'm not sure. This background is green. I think I might do actually like a lighter green, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the background of this. I may do kind of like it is, like mixed foliage, but I think I want it lighter, but we'll see. Not exactly sure. Welcome, welcome. I see a few more people coming into the stream. Glad to have you. If it's your first time joining, feel free to jump in the comments and say hello wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, glad to have you joining. All right, so we have a rough base. I notice that these petals, as they dry, are soaking in. So we will do. Okay. Good deal. All right, we got some flowers in, so let's now, or some petals. Surprised I can get my hands above your head. Actually, Bob G, welcome. And my hands are not moving much above my head. I'm going straight out at shoulder level. Bob's referring y'all to the fact that I went out kayaking for the first time this season, this afternoon, for about 3 hours. And so I'm sure it will be much less likely I'll be able to paint at shoulder level tomorrow. Tomorrow is coming. I have no doubt that it is coming. And so yeah, it was fun out on the river, but did get cool as the sun started to go down. So was glad to get off the river once that about perfect timing was oops, oh, I just dropped a orange on the ground. I'll pick it up later maybe. Yeah, so there's that. Let's see, what do we so I'm trying to decide the base color for his puffy part of him, the body, the torso of the beast. And it's easy to look at him and to know, oh, a bumblebee or whatever he is, whatever type of bee he is yellow. But it's actually more of kind of a gray, isn't it? It's interesting, very interesting. That's one of the things I love about painting. It is a great subject, this picture. It's actually a bee, just very, very close up. So if you imagine it like super close up, that's why it looks kind of bird-like. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing a little ochre, yellow ochre, or I think is it yellow ochre? Yes, yellow ochre, and then this bright yellow, and then a little of ultramarine blue to try to create a softened gold color that's kind of a gray color. Remember what we were talking about last week about the opposite colors on the color wheel help to, for lack of a better term, dull down the colors that are their opposites. So like red, green helps dull down red. Blue helps to dull down something like a brown. They're not exactly opposite, obviously, but so by pulling a little blue into this, we can make kind of a grayish yellow. And then when we add highlights to it, it'll be a good foundation for us to start. And then we can add, and hopefully then when we add some yellows, it will really stand out. So I'm going to put this all the way back on his body or her body, not sure, kind of just wherever I see it. And it will, most of this here on the body will be covered up from, because it's kind of black fuzz. They're kind of fuzzy animals, but we'll get an initial, there is some that shows out. So that'll help us. I love that my friends, so y'all, I love that my friends are kind of get to know each other, quote unquote, in the live stream. So even though Bob and Lola, you've never met in person, it's great that you get to know of each other as you and others as you come week in, week out. But we have to pause right here. Let me change, because someone has just joined the live stream that is very special. Special all the time, but especially today. This is my sister, my little baby sister, not baby anymore, my younger sister, Heather. I want to say a special happy birthday to you today, Heather. I hope it was a great day, and I hope that you got to celebrate or are celebrating with your kiddos and the hubby and family around you. Was thinking of you today, and I hope that it was a great birthday. So happy birthday from the live stream to my sister. Everybody yell out and say happy birthday to my sister Heather today. Anyway, I know she'd be embarrassed if we were in person, but since we're not in person, I figured I can embarrass her all I want. All right. I love it. Thanks, y'all. That makes me happy. All right. We will continue here. So we have some of this now. What I want to do is bring in some more of this blue right here and a little brown. More birthday greetings coming in for the sister. Sister Heather. Yes, yes. Okay. So I'm bringing in some blue and then some brown, burnt umber, which will give us, if we keep working, will give us a kind of grayish black almost, because black only occurs in nature. If you've been here before, black occurs in nature far under the earth in a cavern where all light is gone, where there is no light, but otherwise, even though it looks black, it is, if you can see it, there's light reflecting. So it's not completely black, and that may be a little kind of just unnecessarily strict, but I enjoy mixing these dark colors from blue, green, and brown, which is essentially a red, and you can mix a dark color. So that's what we're doing, and we'll do a undercoat initially for the we'll just put some undercoat here on the body, kind of where we see it. And the head here. And again, this will allow us to go in with even darker colors and put more detail in as we get going, but that'll give us a start. And I actually want to take some of this color, bringing a little more yellow and the ochre into it to lighten it a little bit. So remember, in past streams, I always say we want to mix our colors together in the sense that we want the painting to be cohesive. So when I mix the dark here, I put in a little more of the yellow and brown to lighten it, so it's almost yellow and ochre, so it's kind of a greenish color. And I'm just going to put it here in the flower throughout so that it provides us not only the canvas cover for the canvas, but will also be an underlying cover for the shadows that we see in the they're not really petals, but those, I guess maybe they're petals, those pokey parts of the flower. So we'll just put some of this in here. And doesn't have to be exactly, I'm not worried about it being exactly like our reference, because again, this is all going to be undercover, and most of it will be the oranges and reds and greens, light greens of the flower when we get done. So it'll just show through a little bit. So I'm just scrubbing it into the canvas as we go. Then and since this is green, I'm just going to come up in here. Since I don't know what I'm going to end up doing in the background, I'm just going to, we know that there's plants back there, so I'm just kind of putting that suggestion in. Since the color's on my palette, let's just put the suggestion of the light we see through the petals. There we go. All right. Looks like a little bit of a mess, but as you know, that's kind of our MO, isn't it? That's our MO. That's how we do it. This is how we do it. Okay. Take a little green. All right, I'm taking a bunch of different greens. Oops. Here. So I have the phthalo green, the sap green, and then a light green. And this will allow me to put in, I'm just gonna, I don't know what I'm just gonna kind of mix it a little bit and see what we come up with. But basically, it will allow us to put in some green tones for the lighter spots here, where there's green showing through. Just kind of blend that in. Then I am going to sneak around here. Excuse me moving the camera because I dropped my orange paint clear in the corner behind my painting table. So, got it. Ooh, and I dropped a brush. Crazy thing. Someday, y'all, I'm going to have an actual studio and be able to spread out a little more. Will make it a little easier. But until that day, we will make this work. Okay. We are about half an hour in, and I am pleased with where we're going with this painting so far. We're getting a rather large canvas compared to some that I do normally. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take some burnt sienna, which is an orange brown, and some actual orange. Burnt sienna and actual orange, and let's see what we can come up with. And I am going to take a little green because we know that red, which is orange is a derivative of red, will dull down our orange so it's not as fiery, which will help us. Actually, that's coming across really heavy. So let's desaturate a little bit. That's coming across really brownish. So by adding just a little white, it brings us up to a little bit, something I'm a little more happy with. And so this, again, we're still just doing undertones, but bringing in some of the orange or hints of the orange that are here in the flower. Mindful always of our colors, of course, but also just where the values are. We'll be able to spend more time on that as we get going. Okay. We'll see how it turns out. If this works. I think I need to come back over here, grab some more of this green. Blend in. I really don't want any white showing, any of the white of the canvas showing around this bee. So just trying to make sure that we get all covered up. Now coming in over this kind of green we had, and I'm just kind of mixing in all of these and just kind of, there's no real, I hate to say art or science to it, but just kind of mixing this all up and making it a mess a little bit on purpose, so that it will in the end be cohesive, but we need to let that dry a little more, it looks like. But I want to make sure that as the canvas soaks in some of this color, that we're covering the rest of it. Okay. All right, we have mess here, and we have some petals. We have some well, relatively, I'm going to try to move y'all so you can see a little easier. Maybe I can zoom this in just a bit so you can see more. Whoops. But I want to go back now that these petals are drying. I want to go back to those colors. And maybe add another layer. We'll see. Because I'm seeing some spots through my canvas here. So let's just add a layer. And I'm just not worried too much about blending into all these other colors around right now, because we'll refine and do the detail work once we get to that stage. So again, just trying to make sure we get this all covered. Okay. The final thing I think that we need to do for this stage is probably finish out the top of this canvas with the undercoat, with an undercoat, and do then the wing of this bee, because that's a rather prominent, well, maybe not. I don't think we want it that dark. I think we want a little more brown in this. You're, I think, absolutely right, Lola. As I was saying that, I was realizing, oh, there's no reason to put them in, because they don't need, they're so thin, they don't really need an undercoat. and we don't want them, at the same time, we don't want them overbearing. Oh, I messed up in my mixing. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. We don't want them to be overbearing in the painting. We want them to be there. So, yeah, I think you're good call. You always save me from myself, for which I am extremely grateful. Absolutely, yes. And like the deer we did last week, like those whiskers were basically the last thing I did this week. Started adding the whiskers in. Okay, I do think this kind of mint brown green is the color, at least for now, for this background. I like that because the purple pink stands out so well. So now, again, this is going to dry really much, probably darker than it looks on canvas, and so, or it looks right now, and so I'll probably come back, or need to come back with another layer and lighten it significantly, but that's okay. I'm gonna go right now though, while I'm doing this, and put this color around the edge of the painting. I always often forget while the paint is mixed on my palette to do the same color around the edge, that way, because I typically don't frame these. At some point I may, but want them to at least look semi-finished when they are finished. So we'll dab a little of this green along the top edge just to give it a little finish. And so we're not seeing green, or sorry, the white of the canvas when we look at the painting. And now I'm taking my artistic life into my hand by trying to do this even edge painting with my right hand. It's not my dominant hand, so we're gonna, I think we're okay. We're gonna survive that, but yeah. All right, good deal. We got the canvas covered, y'all. Okay, now what we need to start doing, in the reference photo, the light is kind of, it's almost like it's a cloudy day, and the light is shining on this petal. There's also some bright highlights in this green here. There's some highlights, kind of almost white pink on here. But I really want the bee to be the focus of my painting. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to try to not mute the petals, but use darker palettes or a little darker color, muted colors, and maybe brighten up. Even though we dulled down the gold or the yellow to start, notice how when we put it against this purple, it looks much more yellow than it did at the beginning. Because this was almost a gray greenish yellow, and now it looks much more bright, especially in here the yellow is standing out. So I think I want to saturate these more, this color in the bee, so that it really stands out, as well as the orange, the top oranges in the flower where the bee is standing, with the most saturation here so the eye is drawn right there. Let's see if we can actually do that, because that's going to require us to step away from the reference in a sense, or deviate from the reference and use our imagination. So let's see what we can do. I think I'm going to start down on the flower. Start putting some of this bright color in right around the bee, because this is where we want our eye to go. And I'll put periodic pops of color down here, but these are going to be more muted. So this is our focal point, basically. All right, so now in order to, what I'm gonna do now, because I've been mixing this burnt umber, or burnt sienna, sorry, and the orange to give me that bright kind of reddish orange color. So I'm gonna bring in some more burnt umber so that it is a little darker, but still those same tones. And because we know that the green and the blue will dull down this, little blue, a little green will dull this down. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to bring much more brown in, and we're going to mix it in, but that's going to be the majority of this. And when we get down here in the corner, this will just blend into very little detail. We're not going to put a lot of detail down in here. So probably this like darker color is about as detailed as we're going to get when we get down in here. Again, because your eye will tell you it's the same, but we want to lead people's eyes up here. So we don't want to put a lot of color down in here. we'll put some of this dark, like bring it right in. We need some down here. There's a lot of deeper values. We want it even more since we're, again, leading the eye away from that. It's really interesting and funny to me. I remember when I started being so, at the very beginning, being so frustrated with the process of learning to mix color, and afraid that once I got a color I liked, that I would never be able to duplicate it. And I'm just mindful this evening as I'm just kind of splashing this paint on that it's so funny that now I'm not terribly proficient at it, but I've learned kind of my process for mixing, certain colors and certain things, and I know kind of what I'm going for. And it's cool because it makes me feel like, okay, cool, I've learned this, or I'm become better at it. But I remember also saying on the live stream, there will be a time when I don't have to fret about things because I know there's a time coming when I will know what to do, and the excitement of not knowing and figuring it out will dissipate. So anyway, random philosophical thoughts this evening. In this case, the more layers and the more colors and the more variety, the better, because it's going to give that illusion of 3 dimensions. It's going to give that illusion of shadow and light. So we want as many or as much as possible. Okay. Now, I think we're getting where I want. Like, this is pretty dark, and then the light, your eye is already kind of, just because this is a little light, and it's not even that light. We haven't highlighted this at all, but your eye is drawn up there because of the layers we've put in. So that's what I'm going for. I'm just kind of testing it out, seeing, does this work? We do a little more and a little more. I still want some color down here in these. I just don't want it too bright. Okay. Now what I'm doing right now is basically desaturating this color that was up here, but I'm bringing it down and creating this petal structure that's in the center of the flower. So you can see on my palette, I think, here I've desaturated these colors by adding a little blue and a little darker brown to them. And that allows me to get the same tones because it's the same colors I've used above, but it's just a little less bright, I guess, essentially. When we say, I say desaturate. And then because I still want to somehow create the feeling of this being rounded, so I still want some higher points of saturation down here, but just not as high as above, of course. Not as much detail, just kind of more shadow. And in this case, I really don't know. This is one of those situations where I don't exactly know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to figure it out as I go. So this is always fun to me when I am in a situation where I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, but it's always, can I do it? Can I make it happen? So now what I think I need to do is go back, brighten the tone I've been using, but I still need it a little darker, and I need to put some shadows in this these bright spaces. Hey there, Betsy. Thanks for popping in. I know it's early for y'all out on the West Coast, or earlier when I start, but I appreciate you popping in and saying hello. Okay. And I think what I'll do here at the top where it's bright, I'll also bring in some tones of some red tones, because right now it's very orange and brown. But I think that I will bring in some, for highlights, I'll bring in some actual more red tones. So there's kind of almost a deep brown burgundy that's really pretty in this flower. So I think that's what I'll do. I didn't want to. All right, I think I'm fairly happy with how this is showing up. Isn't it cool how just by playing with the color values here, like it almost looks like the light is shining right there, which is kind of what I want. It's going to make it a much more interesting painting than the actual reference. So that's what we'll go for. Okay. Now, let's do some. So here's the deal. I want to come in and darken the head and the body because that is going to make then the yellow stand out even more with very little highlights. But also, I have to be careful because I don't want to darken the space in between these petals. I want there to be space in between these petals, but I don't want it where the head of the animal blends in with that too much. So this is a challenge to see, can we get a very dark, almost black color for this animal's body. So that it will stand out more. Let's see what we have here. I don't know if I just made that better or worse, but we will find out. I'm adding the hint of the wing now, just so I don't completely lose the placement and the feeling of it. But we will refine it later. Okay. All right, that gives us a rough idea of where the wing's gonna be. It may be a little low, but we'll fix it. Starting to come together, isn't it? Kind of looking cool. Kind of looking cool. Well, if you are a regular participant of this live stream, you know that about this time, it is time to take a break. Not really a break, but my water is looking kind of murky, so I am going to take a break and clean the water, and I will be back in just a minute. For your entertainment, I am going to put a dancing GIF, and why not some tunes? I'll be right back. See ya in just a minute, y'all. Oh, and feel free, even though the dancing GIF is already on, feel free to refill your drinks and snacks, and I'll meet you back in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. All right, welcome back. Hope you had a nice break, quick break, bathroom run, whatever you needed to do. And let us see what we can do now to wrap up this, what's turning into quite a nice painting, don't you all think? I do think so, even though I's the artist. Okay, now, I think what I really want to do is start focusing most of my attention on the bee. On the bee, the queen bee. So, I'm going to probably use mostly detail brush at this point. I want to start adding some highlights and see if what I'm thinking is actually going to work. I want to highlight this, the top of this bee's body. So let me see, a yellow, this is kind of too green, I think. Maybe not. tone down the yellow just a bit. So I wonder if I bring in okay. Maybe. So I'll see if this works. We will see if it works. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and then we'll try to see if it works. Never would have thought this would work, but you never know. It's sort of working, so I think I'm going to keep going with it. And then I'll explain what's going on in my head. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit to kind of explain what I was thinking. So, I am doing, it may not look like it on the screen, but actually along the top of the crest of the bee is a more greenish yellow that's brighter. Then down here in this kind of semi-shadowed area, which you can see a little bit better on the screen, I think, is more a bluish, cooler yellow. And then I added some brown over here under the wing to indicate the at least at the beginning. So, oh, my camera just went. Hold on. I think it's probably my internet connection. Oh, sorry. There it is. I think we're back. Yeah. So my camera is not hardwired. It's Wi-Fi, which is not the best way to probably run a live stream, but yeah, that's what we're doing. Okay, so now what we need to do, I think, is just refine these things, these colors and these areas, so that they are there's more layers and more vibrant, so it looks more 3D. So it reflects kind of the volume of the bee's body. So I'm going to come back here and just try to highlight some of this. Highlight along the front. Add a few fuzzy spots along the bee's face. Don't want it, it's looking a little humped backed, isn't it? I don't want it too much. I don't want to overtake, but I think the wing will be broadened, which will soften some of this. So that will help. All right. Sorry, I'm being very quiet. Trying to mix a very dark, because I want to go back to the wing and refine some of this now. because I believe that getting some of this right will help the whole thing. So Okay. Now, while we're doing this, the wing is not perfectly placed, I don't believe, but we're gonna do some very simple contour, almost a grayish color. For the contour of the wing. And I'm actually bringing in some of the magenta on this wing to indicate kind of some of the reflection of the and translucence of the wing to the flower behind it. And we're going to do the same with the eye to see if we can start to give it some shape. I think it needs a little more. We're going to also start laying in the reflection or the light reflecting off the leg. All right, we're about 15 minutes from the top of the hour, so we're going to be wrapping this one up, at least for tonight, fairly quickly. I think there's still a lot more detail work to do, um, but I will be doing that offline. Hopefully, this week I'll have some time to dig in a little bit and do some more of this detail work. But pretty happy with where we are with what we're trying to do. So that makes me pretty glad. So let's see if we can put some highlight in this eye. Pop it too far off the, I think it is, huh? It's going to be too bright, at least compared to what's around it. So we need to tone it down a little. It's fine. We'll just keep working on that. Hey there, Max. Thanks for popping over after your stream. Yes, we are doing a B. We're about to wrap it up for the evening. Can't believe we've been going 2 hours. It's crazy. You know how fast streams fly. So, just doing some detail work. We'll do much more, hopefully, in the coming week. But wanted to get a good foundation started, and I feel like I have that, even though I still don't quite know what I'm doing. It's literally trial and error, but I am totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. Okay, y'all, with the last however, about 10 minutes. I want to do a little more work on, I think, on the flower. I'm trying to decide if I want on the flower. Yeah, let's do the flower. So what I'm going to try to do is, like we did with the reds and maroons here, I want to come in with the greens and put in some more highlight in this area. Again, we opposite of the, or I guess different from the reference photo. I want to desaturate the colors down here so it draws the eye upward. So I want to put a little bit more of the brighter greens up here at the top, which will support the brighter reds and oranges that are there. And then, of course, as we did before, kind of desaturate as we go down. So we add a little more of the brown to take out some of that, not take out the green, but adjust the green. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we be doing. That's what we do. So here's another little tip for you. When you're doing layers and color and all of these things, one of the things that I've learned is it's not just the color you paint, but it's the color next to what you paint. So as I add darker colors, what's next to it? It's not just going in and painting lights, which is what we tend to think of color, but how can I create a feeling of three-dimensionality by painting around the light spaces, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's just kind of what I'm trying to do right now. Let's put a lot of different layers into this so that it adds interest, but also variety. And one of the things I can do is take my perhaps darker green brown up into some of these spaces next to the reds and browns, and that causes these greens up here maybe to pop a little more. But they're not quite where I want them, so I want to actually highlight them a little more because I really want them to stand out. And I'm actually going to take the light green from the left-hand side of the flower and bring it to the center so that there is kind of these bright highlights in the center, if I can. Hey there, Chase. Welcome. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for stopping back by, Amy. Yeah, we're just wrapping this up in the next 4 minutes here, and I'm doing some additional kind of detail work and highlights. I'm going to be doing more of this the week. I think I'm lightening this too much, though. So I'm going to have to work on this. The greens are too much, or you know what may also need to be, now that I'm lightening the greens, I probably need to, because remember what I said about what's next to it? Before, the oranges were the brightest thing, but then they got next to them bright greens, those bright greens, and so let's see if we can rectify some of this. Ah, look at that. Look at what happened. Like, I brightened my oranges up, and all of a sudden the green doesn't look so out of place. But it does down here because it's too bright in the middle of the green. So you bring some brown in, some burnt sienna. Yeah, it's so crazy how this works. But I am getting what I want, which is I want it to look like the light is shining right on the bee, right on the bee, which is what I'm getting. I want that definitely to be the focal point. I'm kind of liking this right now. Kind of liking it. I don't know if y'all can see this, but whoops. So I'm bringing some desaturated greens back in here just to support the bright highlighted greens. And then they should just fade into the background. That's the goal when you're there, far away. So that's kind of what we're going for. Well, we have this dark green though. Let me put even more of a, want to emphasize the colors between the petals, because what I want is the color around the bee to be darker, the green behind the bee. And then I want as it gets higher up here to be lighter. So I want some of that to show through. I'll have to finesse this a little bit more, continue to finesse it, but it'll get there. All right. Yeah, I'll have to work on this some more, but we're getting there. I'll go in and then really define the petals and maybe keep working on the flower and definitely the bee, but I'm pleased with where we are at the moment. Pleased with where we are at the moment. What do you all think? I think it's got some potential. Got definitely some potential. Oops. Okay. Pardon me while I move the camera back. All right. As we wrap up this. Thanks, Max. I appreciate it. Bob G with the bad puns tonight, but I appreciate it. Thanks so much for sticking around, everybody, and everybody who popped in. I appreciate you joining me. It's so much more fun to do this while you're here and engage with you and chat with you. So thank you so much. All of my regulars, Bob, Lola, Mom, Dad, everybody who pops in and sticks around for most of the live stream. I appreciate you. I know it's 2 hours is a long live stream, especially when it's just watching me paint. But I definitely appreciate you. I thank you so much for joining me. You can, as always, join me every Saturday at 7 p.m. Central Time. You can go to YouTube. If you're not subscribed there already, if you're watching on Twitch or Facebook, elsewhere, find me on YouTube. That's the best place to find the stream. You can also set a reminder for all future streams. So I have probably about, I think, to episode 30 something scheduled already, so you can set those notifications on YouTube. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can do so at Stephen E. Rice, Stephen with a V, middle initial E, and last name R-I-C-E. And you can see kind of the progress photos, because I post all the progress photos for these paintings there. When I work throughout the week, you can see kind of the progress and then the final project. So again, thank you for joining me. Have a great week, everybody, and I hope to see you on the next live stream next week, 7 p.m. Central Time. Have a great one.